Okay, I think we are live. We're live. So, we wanted to pull some time together when we could talk about Kotter's training and certification program. So, I work at Kotter. I've been here for a little bit. You've been here at Kotter for a little while. Why don't you just give us a little bit of context? Because for those people who are on, I assume and I think that there's a fair degree of knowledge around who John Kotter is, having started his career in the domain of organizational performance and change. And over the years has written some 20 some books, hundreds of articles, everywhere from Harvard Business Review, New York Times, all sorts of places. So an authority in change. But I remember going to China, doing work with Kotter and doing training. And it was a matter of getting a group together at a factory in person, early one morning before the shift started, and then we did it late again one night. So the beauty is what you're saying is that the opportunity for us is much greater to be able to do different kinds of, to your point, different kinds of modalities, meet people where they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we were founded on the idea of millions leading, billions benefiting, and the only way to do that is if people can access our work and learn from it and apply it. And that can only happen if we've got lots of different ways to go out and reach people.
Fantastic. All right, that's terrific. So, I'd like to dive in a little bit, and there is such a body of work. Kotter is known for John Cotter's IP initially, his intellectual property that he wrote, starting with Why Transformation Efforts Fail. That became the book Leading Change, The Heart of Change, A Sense of Urgency, Accelerate, Buy In. There's just such a body of work here. As we've taken that, as Cotter's taken that now and framed it up into what I'm going to call a curriculum, or you call a curriculum. I'm going to pull up, and I don't know that you can see this, Rachel, but I'm going to pull up for everyone on in the audience, sort of how our curriculum is structured. So would you mind just sort of talking us through what the different components are? And we've got sort of all of the six programs that are listed. I think you're familiar, obviously, having been so involved in creating all of this.
Yes, no. So I think just at a very basic level, the idea is that we've looked at everything sort of end to end in terms of what people may be most familiar with in terms of our research, in terms of John's original research. What we once referred to as the 8 steps, which we now look at as the 8 accelerators, a much more dynamic, organic, sort of cyclical look at what makes transformation efforts succeed. And so we've really taken that and through 6 different courses that in one way build on each other, but we think about the 6 courses in a very similar way that we think about the 8 accelerators. So your first course is really grounding you in the foundations of change. It looks at the entire sort of framework around the science of change, particularly as it was introduced in the most recent book of Change a couple years ago. And then each subsequent course dives deeply into one or two of those 8 accelerators. And all 6 of those together stack up to a certification. But what's great is that you can also break them down. You can take any single one of the courses, you can take some of the courses, the ones that are most relevant to you. And then each of those courses is broken down into modules. So, for some of our customers, will take and clients will take bits and pieces of the modules and really curate a selection of training for people where it's just super bespoke.
So starting with foundations of change, and the description being the art and the science behind successful transformation. Is that the starting point for most of these? And as you said, you can kind of go where you need to go, but the certification is you certified in all six, which is quite terrific.
Yeah, yeah, and foundations of change. It's interesting because it's not a required prerequisite for any of the subsequent courses, but we do find 2 things. One, we strongly recommend that people start there because it gives you an introduction to everything end to end before going deep into any of the individual content pieces and
Okay.
topics. And then the other thing is, if you're looking to create a common language, it really is a very rich course in and of itself. So if you're going to take one and only one course, like that's the one to take.
Okay.
Every right. So that is absolutely our core foundational course that I think everything else builds off of. Not to say that you can't take the other ones without foundations, but I would
I
highly recommend it.
I'm keeping an eye to make sure to see if we've got any questions coming in. So I'm having a look now. I can't see any just yet. So that's okay. Um, Rachel, maybe just give us a feel for what does one of these courses feel like, and maybe you said different modalities. So I can do it in person or I can do it online. Um, how might I experience Foundations of Change? And then I think you're going to let us go a little bit deeper into what it might look like for someone who does it online, so we can showcase that too. But just give us a feel for what it feels like through those different delivery methods or modalities.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it really is a different, just from an experiential standpoint, obviously, being in a room with a group of people, whether that is a group of people from your own company or whether you're joining us for one of our open enrollment courses and you sort of get the benefit of all of the different perspectives and voices from people in different industries and different roles and different positions, different backgrounds and experiences, there's a richness to the dialogue. And so our in-person trainings are very much sort of cohort based. So you really are learning as much from our expert facilitators as you are learning from each other. And our online courses are designed to really deliver the same type of learning, but through different types of interactions. And what I love about our online courses is that every course kind of has its own personality, and that personality and sort of flavor comes to life and it was really designed around the content that you're learning about. So if you're learning about what it means to, the accelerating results course, for example, it's all about wins. It's all about what does it mean to generate wins? What does it mean to celebrate wins? And that course has a theme to it that actually really engages you almost in a way that it's gamified, to actually sort of help you win throughout the course. So there's different ways in which each course comes to life that allows it to be not just the same thing over and over again, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, that's terrific. So, and as these build, you've got Foundations of Change. That's the kind of the foundation, followed by engaging stakeholders to spark a movement, which is honestly sort of how you really start to build urgency and get momentum around a large change, selling that case for change. Um, could you go into a little bit of the essential change toolkit? Because I imagine people are sort of really eager to know what tools are in the toolbox, so to speak. So what do you cover in that?
So I would say two things. One is Essential Change Toolkit really is the course of the six that is really driven by tools. So it's very tools driven. That being said, I did a map the other day to kind of look across all of the courses and all of the modules. And across the entire certification program, we have a total of 45 different tools that we have in the toolkit to be able to pull out and use. So it's actually even more than I thought it was. I actually embarrassingly had not gone back like line by line to count. And I just did, and I was surprised myself. But the Essential Change Toolkit really does allow people to go in and practice using a whole set of tools that you can then take and use over and over and over again. And one of the things I didn't say before that I should have mentioned is I think one of the things that makes our programming unique is that everybody who comes into it, you come into it with practicing everything against an active change that you're either participating in, leading, preparing for, or helping to sort of coordinate, administer. But you come in and every single thing that you do is practiced against something real. So you're taking something away and applying it in the course and then being able to apply it immediately. So it's not just theory that you're learning, you're practicing it in the class itself.
So the idea of a cohort, you could do with colleagues. So you're going through something together, and I think you've had a couple of examples where people are going through sort of a fairly significant transformation within their organization, and a few people come in. But that cohort experience will also transcend, right? If I'm doing it with people who I don't know, and I don't have to worry about sort of sharing information that's proprietary or I don't want my competitors to know about. So how do I take that if I'm in a live session and I want to make it real, but I don't want people at my table or my group to sort of know what I'm talking about?
It's interesting. We've had that question a lot from participants ahead of them taking the course, and then once they get into the room, it really isn't problematic at all because there are such universal human experiences that once people start sharing, you can relate back to. You don't have to share people's names. You don't have to share financial information. You don't have to share anything specific about, a certain strategy. But there is a sort of universal ways of saying one of the things I'm really challenged with is I've had this project or this transformation or this initiative or this task, and I'm getting stuck here. I'm able to engage and rally my team, but then like we haven't been able to break out of our team. And so being able to use other people's experiences and brainstorm together in a blended group can really help unlock some thinking without having to get too specific and share proprietary information. So it hasn't actually been an issue at all. And we've had CEOs in our open enrollment programs. Like this is not all just mid-level managers or early career or independent consultants. The blend in those open enrollment classes is all the way from CEOs of large organizations down to, very early in career folks. And it really is a universal, versatile program.
Well, Rachel, just on that, and we'll get into looking at the program in a second, but who is the perfect audience for any of these courses or the whole curriculum?
Oh, well, so the answer that I would really give is probably the sort of most generic answer, which is anybody can take this and use it. And I say that because over the course of the last 15, 17 years, I really have been able to see it. And you have too. I mean, you and I have worked on projects where, um, you know, CEOs can take this and start to build a movement around a change or a transformation that's important, that they know is strategically important to their business, and start to get people really aligned and moving and activated in the same direction. And it's incredibly important, not just for that leader, but for the organization itself. And then we've seen people come in and use this and take it on a very personal level and make really incredible, deep personal changes. Um, I won't share anybody's personal stories here because they're not really mine to share, but I think you and I have seen some people really transform personally in ways that are really profound.
Um, it is. It's quite enriching when people are able to take this outside of a classroom where they intend it for professional use in their work, and then are able to use it at home with spouses or children or groups that they're a part of. No questions yet, but that's great. Obviously, we're answering all the questions as we go. The last question I just have on the curriculum piece of this is, how long might it take me? What does a course feel like if I'm in person? Is it a day or two? If I'm doing it sort of live online, or if I'm doing it self-paced, what's the range of timing, Rachel?
No, that's a great question. So for our certification program, end to end, so for example, we've got an open enrollment class coming up in 2 weeks, actually. So we've got one in 2 weeks, we've got another one in May, and those in-person ones we host in Boston. They're 5 days, Monday through Friday. So you get through all 6 courses over the course of 5 days. If you're doing it internally at your organization, we can play with the timing and play with the cadence of that easily too. Um, our our programs where we do it virtual instructor led, we usually do it 2 weeks of half days online, and then we give you a break between the 2 weeks so that there's time to sort of go through, put into practice some of what you've learned, come back, reflect. And so it's a little bit of a different cadence there. The individual courses themselves tend to be in person roughly a day. Um, if they're virtual instructor led, usually 2 half days
Okay.
back to back, that we do them consecutive. And then online, the courses range from, and it's very dependent on sort of how quickly, what style you are of a learner. If you're somebody who really sits and absorbs and wants to take things in, we give lots of opportunities to sort of have additional reflection or sort of bonus content or reading. That's optional. And so some people will choose to do that, some people won't. So anywhere between 3 and 6 hours per course, if you're doing it self-paced online, and you can do it at your own pace. I've seen somebody go through it in a few days, which to me is like very gung ho, but more power to you. And then I've seen people take, 6, 8 months where they've paced themselves out and they want to do a course a month.
So it really does become what someone needs. And I know we're having great success at the moment taking this in-house to companies and helping them build change capability in-house. So sort of, not customizing, but certainly flexing our content to what a team might need, because that's great when you have a common language and everybody speaks the same language in terms of your approach and what you want to do. Let's
And even if
let's
you're, sorry
oh
to
yeah,
interrupt you,
yeah.
but even if you're doing the self-paced online learning, you can do that within your team and within an organization. One of the things that we recommend all the time, actually, is even if you're just doing foundations of change, every course is then split up into multiple modules. So foundations of change is 3 primary modules. You can sort of do a book club style and create these peer coaching groups. And so you can do a module, everybody does their module, you come together and you sort of have this peer coaching group, and you can really create that almost live networked feedback experience, even if you're basing it on the online course and if you don't have one of us facilitating.
What I love about this is that, and we've seen it happen, right? There's kind of two levels of learning that happen. One is the foundations of change, so you're learning about the content and the program, but the other is if you're doing it with in a cohort, but certainly if you're doing it amongst peers, that common language, you're learning about sort of how to apply it within your own organization. So you're actually accelerating it that much faster, which I think is really quite significant. Let's dive in. I want to go into kind of give everybody a little bit of a lens. So what I've got up on the screen, Rachel, you let me log in a little while ago, and everyone can see here. I've kind of down the left-hand side are some progress bars, and it says here, Introduction to the Science of Change. So you said that this one is the Foundations of Change course has got a couple of modules. This is one called the Science of Change, and as I go through this now and I'm scrolling through, I see that there's a change book. There's a PDF that I can download and I can read. There's some context, and then there's video content. So this is all sort of rich media, right? This is something that I can watch, I can listen to, and it'll take me through the process. Is that right?
Yeah, and like I said earlier, every class, every course within the certification program sort of has its own personality or character. Foundations of Change being one of the sort of richest foundational from a content standpoint. We use a lot of video of our folks. The book authors, are sort of master facilitators and consultants, folks who have been kind of in the field with clients, telling stories, giving great context, and providing a lot of color to the content. In addition to looking through scenarios, case studies, examples. So we use a lot of that type of exercise and activity in our foundations course to really say, like, okay, here's the idea. What does this look like in practice? What does this look like in a real example? Or what is, and giving the learner options to say, well, here's the choice I might make if I were in that situation. And a lot of them have no right or wrong answers. A lot of them are contextual to say, if you take this path, this is the implication for it. And it really is for the learner to evaluate what different types of implications are involved in different decisions along the change journey.
I'm looking now at the sort of survive and thrive dimension, which I know is a core part of the book, and it goes into sort of some of those physiological elements as well as our bodies and how we respond. That's pretty rich. So do I need to kind of understand human biology and something like that to get into this, or does it give me what I need to know and only what I need to know?
It will give you what you need to know. And this is one of the reasons that I say Foundations of Change, while not a required prerequisite to the rest of the courses, is elemental and is always where I would start, because we really go into both the idea of survive and thrive and how we are wired as humans to respond in times of change. And it is as basic as that. And it is around creating both self-awareness, but awareness of others and awareness of the triggers and signals that we put out and how we receive them and how we can actually be in control of some of that and take more ownership over some of that, so that we have a much more positive influence in the changes that we're driving. And that becomes a backdrop that somebody can then refer to throughout the rest of the courses. And similarly, the four change principles. So management and leadership, head and heart, select few, diverse many, and have to and want to. Those general concepts, when Foundations of Change says the art and science behind successful transformation, the science is the research. The eight accelerators, that is the proven framework over 50 plus years that just continues to hold strong. The art behind it is being able to understand that human hardwiring, being able to understand those fundamental principles that you can pressure test everything up against. And they become just such an easy reference for anybody to use. And that's why it's one of the really core reasons that I always say do foundations first.
Yeah, because in a way, the foundations also taps into the most recent work that we at Kotter have been doing around understanding the sort of what we didn't even know 10 years ago, because we didn't
Right.
have access to the fMRIs and research that's being done in labs around the world on brains and human performance. But it's bringing this level of sort of how humans behave to an eternal challenge around how we lead change, and frankly lead change in an environment that is increasingly disruptive and disrupted and unpredictable and uncertain. And our 200,000-year-old brain, it kind of is not really geared up for that. So putting those
Well,
things
and
side by side is
yeah, and when you asked who the program is for, that's one of the reasons it's so universal, is because all of us are now operating in an environment where change is constant, right? So that's really one of the big things in our world today, is that change isn't episodic anymore. It's it's a lot of change all the time, and we're all experiencing it. So in one way, it is this universal experience. And in another way, every single one of us is so unique that to also be able to understand that the person sitting next to me, at work, that my spouse, that my child, that my boss is going to experience this differently than I am. That's where sort of the complexity comes in. And that's where really learning to build this muscle to be more adaptable in this disrupted environment that's not slowing down is critical for all of us to be able to have that capability and have that skill set. It's something I wish I could have learned as a kid instead of learning now as an adult.
it's interesting, and a lot of people might not know this, but I think it was back in 1992 that Dr. Kotter wrote the book Corporate Culture and Performance.
Mhm.
And you just talked about adaptability and agility. And what's interesting is that the idea of agility and adaptability were key as insights that he had discovered then, in terms of those companies that could handle, or not that they could handle, but that would perform well. Right. So
Yeah.
there was a correlation between those attributes and performance. But it was a good, so that was 1992. It was a good 9 years before we really started to see the agile methodology that is used so often right now, certainly in software development. Uh, but it was a good 10 years before that started to manifest. So that's implicit here too. The idea of, what do we know, not just from today, but what do we know is deeply rooted in terms of performance across the board. Rachel, we have got a question from Sarah, who wants to know if she were to start with one course, which would you recommend? And I'll go back to our curriculum page just so that you know where we're going here and what I'm going to show. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I would. So I would definitely start with foundations, Sarah. That is absolutely where I would start. I think where to go from there maybe depends on what sort of where you sit, what kind of transformation you're working on, what kind of challenges tend to pop up for you in terms of moving things forward. We do find sort of following the foundations course in terms of areas of focus. A lot of folks take the WINS course. Sometimes the Essential Change Toolkit is a great a great one for folks who, especially if you're a little bit more process oriented as a learner. And so if you like things that are a little bit more process oriented, a little bit more concrete, that's a really great course. If you really need to get people on board and bought in and start that momentum going, Russell, you talked about it. This Barca movement course, Case for Change, but foundations is where I would start.
Great,
Hands down.
Rachel. Thanks. That's superb. I want to be mindful of our time as well. So, if people want to find out more, we've got a QR code that I think is on the screen. We've also got a URL people can email. What's the email if people just want to email? Like some of us are old school and we don't want a QR code. Where do I email?
Super complicated. training@kotterinc.com.
Training@kotterinc.com. Okay, great. You've got an open enrollment, you said, coming up. Boston, it's a nice time of year to head up to Boston. When is that? Couple of weeks?
Yep. So we've got one the week after next, and then we've got another one coming up in May. So if you go to our website, so I think if you click on that QR code or the URL, I think it should take you to a page that lists all of our upcoming
Perfect.
open enrollment. And we've got one scheduled into the fall as well. So
Something we didn't touch on that I think is probably worth talking about is the idea of certification. If I attend these and I get certified, what does that certification actually get me? I mean, do I put it up on my wall at home? Like, what do I get to aside from the skill and the insights and probably a whole bunch of new colleagues that are professional change leaders in that space and network with them, but what do I actually get?
So for each course, you get a badge of completion, and then for the certification, you get a certification badge, and it's certified by us through Credly. You can put it on your resume, on LinkedIn, wherever you want to display it. I think the most important thing is that you've got that full toolkit and you've got the full sort of workbook and resources to use as you lead change in your organization. And so I do think it is about having that sort of full set of resources at your disposal and the ability to have practiced it through taking the courses and through getting certified, that allow you to really meaningfully apply the whole framework and methodology to the changes that you're leading.
Thanks. That's great. All right, so I can do that, and that's really helpful too. That's valuable. That's a valuable, frankly, professional development certification. Question from Kerry: do I need to complete all the modules to get the certification?
In order to become certified, you'll need to complete all 6 courses. But each of the courses, like I said, comes with a completion badge as well. So you can sort of build those up as you work towards the certification. And there's no requirement that you sign up for everything all at once. You can do it one course at a time. So a lot of folks have professional development budgets that they can use, at certain paces. And so they section it out and sign up for 1 or 2 courses at a time and work their way through it until they stack up to the certification.
All right, that's marvelous. Thank you. And if I'm representing a company and I want to get a team of people certified, that's something that Kotter can work out with me too.
Oh yeah. Just shoot us
I
an
know
email.
you've done that a couple of times already. So it's building that. Well, I know there's a ton of interest, sort of in the various kind of approaches across the board. There's great energy that comes out of those sessions that you do in Boston. There's great energy that comes out of the sessions that are done online or in a program. So it's been really well done. Anything that you want to add as we get ready to wrap up? We promised people 30 minutes. I don't see any more questions coming in right now. So anything you want to add, Rachel, to wrap us up?
So honestly, it's more of an ask maybe to our audience than it is an offer, in a sense of we are constantly learning and constantly evolving and constantly improving everything that we do. It's part of the foundation of our firm, sort of at a fundamental level. We've been getting really incredible feedback about the courses, which makes me really proud of the team that has put them together. And we're always looking not only make things better, but to think ahead to what's next. So we're already getting people saying, I'd love a whole course on just this one very specific item that you touched on. This could really, it deserves its own course. As we look to the future and build more courses for people, we want that feedback. So for folks who are out there taking it, please be in touch. The best place for us to learn is from you. So that's probably the one other thing I would add.
I know you're doing that because I know that some of the content that we've built is sort of barely 3-6 months later, and we're talking about refreshing it and re-updating something. So I know you are doing that. There has been another question, which I think is a good one too. Well, I think they're all good questions. Let me just say that. Do we have a structure for partnering with consulting firms and maybe consulting, just partnering in general? What increase? How have we done that?
Oh, yeah. So that's a great question. We've got a number of different ways that we partner with folks. Obviously we have our own consulting business as well. So we work hand in hand with our consulting business internally, but we partner with other consulting firms. We partner with other training firms. We partner with foundations, nonprofits, in all different ways to help bring our content out to those audiences. So if that's something that anybody is curious about, we've got a number of different types of programs depending on sort of what you're looking to accomplish.
I was just responding on the LinkedIn to if anybody was wondering and not listening, but wondering why we aren't answering. It's because we're answering live. So the questions are being answered live, and that's why we're not answering there. But we can go back and we can add some answers to the actual questions. So people just read the questions, they'll see that. All right, great. Well, Rachel, this has been fantastic. A quick little power half hour on a Thursday morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thanks for taking us behind the scenes and letting us kind of log into that one program. I know it's, we often want to save the best of what's in the program for people who are in the program, but sometimes people don't know what's in there. So thanks for your insights.
Well,
and
what I
sharing
sent,
it.
what I sent to you and what you just walked people through, that's available for anybody to preview. So we can share that with anybody who's interested in previewing it.
Well, there we go. There's another opportunity, some more value that Rachel has delivered. If you want to find out more, hit the QR code or the link, or just reach out to us through the LinkedIn, however you want to. We'll make sure we get back to you. Rachel, thanks for a good time this afternoon. It's always fun hanging out with you on the web, and look forward to doing this again soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Russell.
Thanks, Rachel. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.